Okay, so good evening everybody. First of all, my name is Johnny. For those of you who I've never met before, I am one of the directors of Salon Education based here in London. I'd like to start by saying thank you to Hairbrain for allowing us to do a little Hairbrain takeover. I've got this incredible girl in front of me, and what we're going to be doing, a really cool haircut. And as you can see, I've got this fantastic colour. I'm going to talk to you very briefly about the zone. I've basically started by sectioning off a vertical section through the top from the centre of the head to the middle of the forehead, and then a curved section that goes all the way around and then down to behind the ear. I'm going to start my haircut from the front, and I'm going to try and work this in a very, very methodical and quite a precise manner, okay? Even though I'm cutting with, I'm using a lot of club cutting when I'm cutting the shape, which basically, for those of you who are not really sure what club cutting is a term used for cutting straight lines, okay? Clean lines. So I'm going to be working club cutting on the majority of the shape, but I'm also going to be working with chipping a little bit later on. So my sectioning pattern basically is going to be working on the base, okay? And my guide and the hair that I'm going to be cutting will be basically meeting each other, okay, in the center. So my number system is 1 travels halfway across number 2, 2 travels towards number 1, they meet in the middle, and 2 is cut using 1 as a guide. Now what's really important here is to understand the length that I've chosen. I'm choosing a length that basically hugs the head. I want the hair to have a bit of a bend to it. So every time I'm cutting the hair, I'm making sure I'm looking at how the hair is responding and reacting. So every time I lift the hair up, I look for my guide, and I basically work on the base. And as I'm cutting, what I'm really conscious of is this root movement. I need this root that I'm cutting to move over slightly towards the previous section. I'm trying to work as clean as I can. I'm working fine sections, and I'm basically making sure that every single time I'm working, I'm dropping a section. One of the biggest mistakes people have is they forget to drop sections. So what do I mean by dropping sections? If I've cut section 3 or section 4, for example, I don't need section 2 and I don't need section 5. I only simply need the previous guide, which will be section number 3. So what I'm really conscious of is getting rid of the numbers that I don't necessarily need. And every time I'm cutting the hair, if you look carefully, I constantly tilt the head away from me. And the reason why I do that is to protect my back, so I'm not basically bending. One of the biggest things I've found on my journey is that basically I used to keep the head, or I was taught to keep the head dead straight. The problem with that system is that you end up having to let me find the right word. You end up having to compensate for that with your back, and I want to try and avoid doing that because I want to try and protect my spine. So we have 2 people on the camera today. We have Harry filming. So Harry, thank you for filming. Say hello to the guys who are watching. Hopefully there is some people watching. And then we have Graham looking at the phone over there, who's going to basically be asking any questions that you might have.
Good evening, everyone.
So G, if the guys have any questions, feel free to ask me, and just interrupt whenever you feel it's correct, okay?
No problem.
So I'm looking basically to work on the base on all of this zone here. Now this is going to be zone 1, and the idea of this is that it looks almost like a crop, quite short, quite croppy texture. It's going to be smooth, and I'm going to put a really, really strong fringe in. And when I say fringe, for the Americans tuning in, I believe you guys call it bangs. So my beautiful model is from San Fran, so she told me that it was called a bang, and she didn't mind how short her bangs went. So I'm going to go for something quite graphic on the front. Now, as I'm working my sections round, let me give you a few little tips, okay? So the first thing to do is make sure you're grooming the hair that you're not cutting very, very cleanly out the way. You should be able to see that section. If you can't see a clean section there, then basically you're not working clean enough, okay? The next thing you do is you get rid of the hair that you've previously cut. Now the danger here is because the hair is short, sometimes the hair doesn't stick so easily. So I'm using a Day Mist, okay? This is a really, really good cutting lotion by Davines. And just by keeping it damp, what happens is it allows the hair to stick a bit more and makes it much easier. Now, if I want to cut this section here, I'll give you another tip. Get your middle finger, place it on this side of the section that you've already cut. Then place your comb inside, push the hair across, put your finger on the other side here, and then clamp together, and then come up. And if you do that, what you're going to find is the hair will basically naturally come straight out from its base. So what you do is you put one finger on one side, one finger on the other side, and then you clamp them together. And that's the key to getting it looking nice and smooth. As I'm coming down to the sideburn area, which is basically down here, what I'm going to start to do is I'm actually going to start to change the cutting line. So at the moment the cutting line is following the contour of the head. When I get to this point here, I'm going to start to maintain some of the length on the outline, okay? So the good thing about that is that this hair that I'm introducing does not have a guide. Only the hair above has a guide. So as I come down here, I can choose whatever length I want this length to be. Let me get that again so it's nice and clean. There's no point working if you're not going to work clean. And if you find it's getting dry, just use a bit of Day and the hair will stick for you and be clean. Use your finger to push the hair out of the way and it makes it stick away, okay? Lift the hair up. And now I'm maintaining an element of length towards the end. And all I'm doing now is making this shape fit nice and tight. So I'm not sure if anybody's tuned in, but I'd like to say thank you if anybody's tuning in. Feel free to share this if you'd like. And I'd also like to say a massive thank you to Hairbrained for allowing us to do this takeover. I've been looking forward to this all day actually, if I'm really honest. I haven't cut hair for about 4 or 5 days now because I've been a bit busy doing other things, and so I've kind of missed it and I've needed to get back on the horse and have a little bit of fun with some hair. You can see by keeping that softness, when I put my graphic fringe in later on, that's going to stand out a lot more. Now a good tip again is to make sure the hair that you've cut, you've combed it into place. If you don't comb it into place, the hair will start to dry in a position where you don't want it to dry. I take the section with the widening of the comb. Again, I use my finger just to secure the hair and push the hair away. Then, because the hair is again very short, you make sure that you put your finger either side of the section and you pull it up. Comb the hair up. Make sure I'm working shorter internally to longer externally. So my length on the outline is being maintained. But what I'm doing is I'm making sure all the internal lengths are much more flatter and much more head hugging. Now what's going to be nice now is as I work over the ear, the hair from the previous shape is already quite short. Can you see? It's already short from being cut around the ear, so I can't continue that cutting line that I wanted because it doesn't actually exist. So all my focus now is on the internal lengths. Is it coming across clear on the phone, Graham?
I have a question just come in from Tara.
Hi Tara.
And she's asking why is the top section not with the sides?
Good question. Okay, so I'm doing a haircut today which is going to be quite a fun haircut for me to do. It's going to be a little bit creative. It's going to be a little bit unusual in regards to the dimensions of the shape. I don't want there to be a completely connected shape. It's going to have elements of disconnection to it. So by separating this top section, this part I'm basically going to keep to cut later. And that part is basically going to connect into all this length that I'm keeping behind the ear and on the back of the head. So all this length here that I'm going to be working with after will connect into the length of the crown. But at the moment, my focus is the fringe and underneath through the side. I want the side profile to be really flat. So that way it's quite head hugging. And what that's going to do is my lengths that I'm going to place around it will be even more exaggerated because the lengths on the side are nice and tight. So once I've cut that down, what I'm going to start to do, I could leave the outlines till the end, but what I'm going to try to do is work in quite a timely manner. So I'm going to work and finish each zone as I'm working. So I'm going to take the hair around the ear here, and I'm going to keep it quite raw. I don't want it to be too clean, because I want it to sit with a bit of texture there. I don't want it to be too neat, so I'm not going to use a clipper there. I'll make sure I don't touch the hair behind the ear. I'm just working the hair over the ear, and I'm using a chipping technique. Now what a chipping technique does is it allows the lengths to be quite raw on the end. And again, I'm just getting rid of any little excess that's just sitting, that's going to kick over the ear. Move this hair forward and take this hair away here. If I spin it round, Harry, the lighting will be a bit better for everybody. If you come around here, that way the lighting will be better. Tilt the ear down and just remove any little hairs that are caught around the ear. And what this is going to do, by doing this, it's going to make sure that the hair around the ear is completely clear of the ear. As you're doing that, a good little tip to do is to actually get rid of the hair that you've just cut, because you think it's still there, you think it's still attached, but actually it's not.
Sorry, Johnny, I just have a couple of questions, quite similar. So we got our friend George. George is asking what your fixed analysis, but then Benjamin had a cool question. He wanted to know, Johnny, do you know what the final result will look like, or are you freestyling a little and seeing how the hair reacts? So both questions.
Really good questions.
Yeah.
Who was that, George and Ben?
So the first one was George,
cool,
talking about the fixed analysis, and then Benjamin, do you have an understanding of your final result, or are you just seeing how the hair reacts?
Okay, good. If you, Harry, get behind me so you can film over my shoulder a second. Can you see? I'll answer your questions in 2 seconds, boys. Can you see now what I've got if you look in the mirror? Is I've got a really flat silhouette. I've kept some softness through the side. I'm going to make the fringe quite graphic later on. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work all around this side, and I'm going to change this side so it's similar to this side but not quite exactly the same. So to answer Ben's question first, do I know what the end result's going to look like? Yes, I've got an idea of what it's going to look like. It's going to be a short cropped shape through the front. On the right side, what's going to happen is it's going to have a little bit of softness around the front of the face, but on the other side I'm going to go for a bit of a graphic line sitting on top of the ear to accentuate the cheekbone. And then my length on top and my length on the back is going to be a lot softer and a lot longer. So it's almost going to be two shapes that sit next to each other. One shape's going to be quite fitted and the other shape's going to be a bit more textured. So the zone that's coming round, I'm also going to come around this way. So if you come around here, Harry, I'm going to come from this point, which basically goes to behind the ear. And I'm going to come round to meet it. So I've almost got like a circular zone through the top. So talking about George's question in regards to the fixed analysis, before I started, George, I basically had a really good feel of the head shape to understand the textures of the scalp and the different types of shapes I had to play with, and the elasticity of the skin. And what I found was the biggest unusual part of the scalp in this scenario is actually the mastoid process. She's got a really predominant mastoid process. But what I have noticed is this texture, when it's drying, it becomes really quite raw. So I'm looking forward later on when you see it, it's going to look a bit kind of punk meets kind of mullet type shape. So the texture will basically be encouraged that way, and I'm going to use the right product to basically bring that alive. So I'm sectioning off this top section. You can see I've got this incredible colour done by Maddie, and we've written the formula which we're going to go over soon. So,
because John from Daverness in Belfast was asking if it was Maddie's special tonight, and she hopes that you do a good job with the haircut for her.
I'll do my best, John, mate. I really will. I promise. I'll do my best. Let me know how I'm doing. So that's my zone, okay? And what I'm doing is I'm going to now start from here and work back around this way. And I'm going to work up to this area here where the recession is. So starting from the top, I'm going to add a bit of speed. Harry, if you come around the front over here, and that way you can get in easier. Okay? So again, I lift the hair up, I find the guide, I put my finger either side, and I take that away. And as I'm cutting it, I'm looking for the bend in the hair, okay? And every time, the main thing here is I want to work super clean. Now, actually, let me show you a little tip, because this is something a lot of people get wrong. Before you move on, what you want to do is cross-check what you've just cut to make sure that the section that you've just cut is accurate, okay? So there's no point moving on. Can you see? The next section I've just cut is a fraction longer, can you see? So if I carry on, this whole side's going to be longer. So when you cut section 1 on side 2, you want to cross-check to make sure you've hit the guide really well. You can see mine was a fraction longer, so that means I basically directed too much away from me. So I'm going to go back again, lift the hair up, and just quickly correct that. And let me tell you how I knew that was the case. In fact, let me ask you guys if you guys can tell me why I was able to understand that without picking the hair up. What gave it away? And if anyone can answer that, that'd be a really nice thing to see.
I had an interesting question from Petra.
Hey Petra.
She's asking, how does elevation and over direction affect to the guidelines movement through the number system?
Cool, so it's a really good question. So in this scenario, what we're focused on is the root movement, okay? So all the roots are obviously being lifted, and in this scenario, the roots are moving left and right from the base. And what they're doing is they're meeting in the middle, okay? So if you think about the number system that I'm applying, that will help you visualize and understand how each section is moving towards each other. So 1 is out from the base and is cut, 1 travels to 2, 2 travels to 1, so they meet in the middle. They basically meet on this side of the section of number 1. That's where they're meeting right in the middle. And what they're doing is they're going straight up from that point. Again, I'm tilting the head away from me to make sure that I'm not pushing too far across that way.
We've had a couple of answers to your question, Johnny.
Give it to me.
So, Steve, you moved on to the next section too soon. Kiri, weight on the fringe, very good section cut. Marina, the root. George, lengths consistent. I think you might mean consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. So
good. So basically the fringe gave me the answer. So who said the fringe?
And David's just come through and said you could see the weight on the fringe.
Good. David
said that,
yeah.
And also Kiri.
Well done, David, and well done, Kiri. Basically, the fringe was telling me what was going on, okay? Now, in this scenario, I told you I'm going to work just up to the point where the recession is, yeah? And I'm working section by section, and I'm making sure that I'm grooming really well, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm only cutting this hair. I'm not cutting this hair and a little bit of that and a little bit of that. I'm trying to work super clean, okay? Now, in this scenario, because my sections are meeting in the middle, what I'm trying to do is be conscious of my grooming and my combing. So as I basically apply my comb inside the hair like this, what I'm doing is I'm making the comb sit flat. So the section is on this side of the comb, and then from that point there, I basically lift it straight up. And that helps me work on the base. Okay, I'm gonna do one more section now, and then I'm gonna come back round the other way, and I'll show you what I mean, okay? I'm going to start to add a little bit of speed in, because what I want tonight is to show you how you can cut a really good haircut in, well, it's going to take me a little bit longer than an hour, but roughly an hour. Okay, now I'm going to start here, which is the bit in front of the ear, okay? Oh, sorry, in front of the top of the head, top of the ear area, in front of the length of the back. Now this length I've already got from the previous haircut. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come from here and I'm going to go quite tight, but I'm going to keep a little bit of a corner just here. Okay, so I'm going to work shorter into longer. So if you can come around the front, Harry, film it that way, you'll be able to see really clearly. If you look, the length, the hair is coming out from the base, but I'm going to maintain some length towards the top. tilt your head a little bit, perfect. And I'm going to use the length over the ear as a guide. Okay, comb it down. That's a little bit too heavy, a little bit too long, can you see? A bit too low, so I'm going to go a bit higher. Now, before you carry on, make your decisions by looking at the hair once it's fallen to its natural position. Taking that up, and the corner is now raised a bit higher. Perfect, okay. Now I'm going to go again. And I'm going to work forward. Guys, thank you for the questions. I love that.
Just have a question about your comb from John.
Okay, hi John.
He's asking, can I ask your choice of comb for this haircut, Johnny? On a short precision cut, I would have tended to go with a YS Park comb. Is there a reason you're using a larger comb?
Okay, so I'm using what we call basically it's a form of a beauty. It's a Sessibon comb, okay? I don't know if you've ever used Sessibon combs. I love YS Park combs, they're very good. Me personally, I like to use a Sessibon or a Beauty. I just find it, for precision cutting, I find them really good. I love the fact that they're not basically, they're carbon based, so it stops the hair from becoming static while I work. Everyone's got their own, who asked the question? John, did you say?
John, yeah.
Yeah, so everyone's got their own preferences, John, on tools and equipment. We basically have our own tools that we use and that we get manufactured for the Salon brand. For those of you who have never had the pleasure of meeting or I've never had the pleasure of cutting hair in front of, I want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight, because doing something like this, no matter how experienced you are, is always very humbling. I know that a lot of you out there are super talented, and I want to make sure that I do a good job for you. So if you guys have any questions, just like John or George or any other guys that asked any questions, feel free to ask me.
We've got a couple coming in. So I just want to say to Linda, she's asking, is the fringe for hair laying on the forehead? And she's putting brackets the bangs, so
yes,
it is. We have a question from Vili. How can you be sure each top of the ear is the same length? So he's asking, which way is best to check the balance?
Excellent, good question. From who, sorry?
Vili,
great question. So basically, I'm not necessarily worried if the length on the ear is different to that one over there, because I've already lifted the length from the ear up on that side, so they're not going to be balanced. I'm treating them like different zones. So this one, I'm going to go for quite a graphic line, and I'm going to aim for her cheekbones, because she's got, I mean, if you can zoom out and just have a little look, don't make you paranoid, but she's super beautiful. She's got amazing features. I love the cheekbone. So I want to try and basically cut the hair to really highlight that cheekbone there. That's my goal.
And we have a question from Anna Pachito.
Hi Anna. Thank you for watching.
When you get in the recession area, do you over direct a little to compensate for the weaker outline?
Very good question. Very good question. In this scenario, no, because I'm going to lift the fringe right up after. So the actual recession area for me isn't necessarily a problem. I'm almost treating this, guys, like multiple zones that will in the end connect, but while I'm cutting it, they don't have to connect. So visually they will connect, but technically they won't all necessarily connect. So can you see I've worked all the way back around now. In theory, hopefully if I've done a decent job, where I've worked it back to this point, I'm hoping that both sides will connect. If they don't, then all I'm simply going to do is come across the top, pull the hair up, and then just make sure they connect fully. Luckily I got all right. I was lucky I managed to find the right lengths. But if you don't, all you've got to do, guys, is come through this way and just dust off to make sure the shape is super clean.
So we've got a few more people joining and asking what the end result is going to be. I don't know if we do a little recap.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So basically, guys, think of this like a really fitted, sharp, accurate, precise type of shape in the front with lots and lots of texture and like length at the back. So it's going to be like a kind of mullet meets kind of crop type feeling, okay? I've basically pre-cut this side, if you've just tuned in now. My zone through the top, in effect, is quite circular, okay? I've started on this side. I've basically worked from behind, in front of the ear, sorry. So from this area here, okay? I've basically worked, I started from the front, sorry, and I worked on the base all the way round to the top of the ear. And this area here, you can see, as soon as I lift it up, you'll be able to see. Let me show you. We'll make it easier that way. If I do this, you'll be able to see. So if I comb the hair through, what should happen is, the lengths are quite short, give me 1 sec. All the lengths are sitting down. So my zone basically is quite circular to the top, and this length here I'm going to play with after. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I've already pre-cut this outline on this side, and I've left the length in the front. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the fringe a really strong feature. Okay. So I'm going to do it so you can see. So ignore this length from the top because I'm going to cut that later on. Okay. I'm going to come in the front here. Do me a favour, Harry. Just look in the mirror. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the 2 recession areas. So like Anna was asking about the recession areas, I'm going to use those 2 areas and I'm going to basically cut a fringe that sits quite tight, like this. I mean, she's got an incredible face, so I can basically do whatever I want. Yeah, and then from here, I'm going to go completely up, all the way up into the hairline. Let me come around there a little bit, sorry. I need to basically judge where the hairline's going to finish. So how if you come in there, can you see there where the corner of the recession is? I'm going to aim for there, yeah? Now you can hold the comb now and cut it with the comb so the hair doesn't move, or you can cut it very visually. And what I've done, I'm putting the rough shape in, and then I'm using the tips of the scissors, and I'm just going to chip my line in, like this. Now what that's going to do, guys, if you look in the mirror, it's going to kick that little bit of length that I've left in the middle. It's going to kick it across. Now if you want to, you can do this bit here with a clipper, i.e. like this. Sorry, Harry. But the negative to do it like this, if I end up doing just basically that, the negative to doing that is the line becomes quite solid. I don't want it to be too solid, I want it to have a bit of texture to it. So all I'm doing is I'm using the chipping technique to still create a hard line, but it's slightly more broken, okay? And then that little bit of kick in the front, I'm going to keep that, that's because my little play area. I like that. Okay, now I'm going to come around that side. And again, just work on this. Come on, Harry, you stand still, Harry, I'll play to you. I'll play to you. Again here. Work it. And let the hair kick, because you can see the hair wants to move away from it. So allow the bend. Look at the bend in the hair here. It's moving away from me. So allow that bend. Don't try and control it. Let it sit where it wants to sit, and then work that length in there. And what that's going to do is going to create a really beautiful shape for me. Like that. Okay, now here, let me get this. I'll get this brush here and I'll wipe the face with it here to get rid of all the hair on the face. And I'll comb this hair down here. Now this bit's interesting because I want to keep the softness, but I want to get a bit of strength through here. So I'm just going to carve just that little corner there out. And what that will do is it will exaggerate that length for me that I've just left. Okay? Now here actually, I can use the clipper because I want it to be a bit more graphic in this area. So a good way of doing this, make sure you tilt the head, comb the hair to the natural fall. So don't basically push the hair forward like this and cut it, because that's not where it naturally sits. Comb it where it naturally sits. And then once you've got it in position, that will just give you a really, really sharp line, which makes that softness come alive. Now I'm not sure if I want to keep this bit here yet, this area here. I might do, I might not. Okay. And I'm just gonna make sure there's no little loose hairs there over here. I'm not going to go anywhere near the line itself because I don't want the line to be sharp. I want the line to be slightly more broken, a bit like the fringe.
Okay. Just had a question from Benjamin, Johnny. He's asking, is the fringe right on the hairline?
Yes. Yes, it definitely is. On this side, definitely. On this side is slightly longer. So on this area you can see the hairline is quite high up there. We've obviously dropped it on this side to maintain a little bit of extra length. Okay, again, work it so it's got a bit of nice texture to it. I don't want it too sharp. Now this area here, over the ear, is the bit where I want it to be quite sharp now, okay? So here, I want all this to be quite graphic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the clipper, I'm going to tilt the head to the side. Now you can see the hair in this area has started to dry already, which is perfect for me because I don't want to blow dry. I want the hair to sit exactly where I've cut it. So comb the hair down to the natural fall. Now I'm going to aim for here. This is the area I want to show off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at that point, and I'm basically going to take a beautiful line. I'm going to aim for that cheekbone. Now notice I'm not moving the ear. I'm leaving the ear exactly where it wants to sit. And the reason for that is because if I pull the ear down and cut it, what's going to happen is I'm stretching the skin in that area, and then when the ear goes up, all the line jumps up. So in this area, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my scissor to basically carve it around the ear. Then, once I've got the length that I want, then I can afford to move the ear and clean it up quicker with the clipper. There's that rhyme. Clipper with the clipper. Clipper with the clipper. Right. Comb my hair down. Make that nice and graphic. Aim it for the sideburn. And then here, again, can you see this little fluffy area? Just make that graphic by taking away the fluffy bits. And that just opens up the face. I can go a bit wider, can you see? I can go basically up to this area here. So I can lose that area there. So I can take it another couple of millimeters, and that way they sit as separate zones. I hope the guys like what they are seeing.
You're getting a lot of love.
I've got this amazing colour by Mads, and it allows the haircut to really come alive. So if you can see, guys, now all my front zone has been cut, and by keeping that corner, if you go behind me, Harry Moore, of my shoulder, you can see that this area here has got a bit of a corner to it, so it's a bit squarer looking, a bit squarer feeling, okay? And by putting those sharp lines in, the whole shape on this side becomes much more graphic, okay? Ideally, what I want is to keep a lot of this length to sit around it quite textured, so I've got a graphic front area, but then a rough kind of rugged textured internal lengths. All right, now, I'm going to start to work on this zone and on this zone, okay? So this is the second zone within the whole haircut, which is the major length area. So I'm using Day again, and I'm moving the hair around really, just to get it nice and wet, just so I can control it really well. If I don't get it wet, it's going to be harder for me to control and style. I'm going to try not to wet the short hair because it's basically unnecessary. Okay, now this length, all these lengths are going to be a little bit longer, okay? I'm going to start with the top first. So that's the reason why I've separated the back from the front, or the back from the top, shall I say, is because I want to basically decide what lengths I want here first, and then whatever lengths I want here, then that will help me understand what I'm going to do through the back, okay? So the length through the top, I'm going to come across the top, from left to right, and comb all the hair this way first to make it easier for me. I'm going to come across the top like this, comb the hair forward. I'm going to use the wide end of my comb, so my comb glides through the hair much easier. I'm going to lift the hair straight up. I'm going to look in the mirror. And I still want the top to have length. I tilt the head down slightly, just so I can see the root of the hair that I'm cutting. I still want the length, but I don't want it as long as it is, because the ends of the hair are a little bit delicate. So I want this to still have enough length for it to be able to bend and feel textured, or if she wants to draw it straight, she can. But I've put my guide in now. Now I'm going to come from back to front. I'm going to use that first section as a guide. Now you can see the hair is like it's enjoying sticking to itself. So it's really important when you're doing this that you work super clean. Yeah, really good grooming, because if you don't, you'll get lost. Really comb the hair down, make sure it's super clean. Try not to affect the zones that you're working. Go through the top. Now you can see, if you come behind my back, Harry, can you see this length that was from the previous haircut that's already there? I'm going to use that because I haven't cut that hair there, yeah? All I've cut is the fringe. So I'm going to use that and I'm going to connect that into my length at the crown. That's my connection. Then I'm going to do the same thing next to it, and I'm going to work on the base. So again, my number system is 1 and 2 meeting in the middle. I'm making sure the roots are basically meeting. I'm pulling the section 1 towards me, and I'm pushing section 2 towards section 1, so they're meeting in the middle, and I'm basically connecting those two together.
Just have a question from Phoebe. What is the difference between the use of small or big scissors?
What a good question from Philly.
Philly, yeah.
Philly, okay. So before, John asked a question about combs, which kind of links onto this question in regards to tools. Some people tend to use very small scissors. So, for example, Graham loves to use really small scissors. Some people love to use really big scissors. I remember teaching in a class once, and the student having scissors that were like, I mean, they were cute. They were like that. They were like for me, they were like garden shears. They were massive. And then you had, you know, ours is like quite an average size, 5.5 and 5.25. We're using the Salon branded scissors, and what I would say to you is, and this is again completely personal, for me, I like my tools to sit in my hand. Anything bigger than that for me is unnecessary. I just want to be able to control it. So by having my tools big enough to just simply be able to control it, that's the key. It doesn't matter whether it's big or small, it's up to you. As long as you're able to control the tool, then that's the key really. Like some people prefer to use small clippers, some people prefer to use only big clippers, even when they're doing like detail work. To be honest, it's pure preference. I think that it just needs to be big enough for you to be able to control the tool. So I'm working on the base, so my lengths from left to right are consistent, and my lengths from back to front are. Now I'm going to cut this side. And what I'm going to start to do, what you're going to start to see soon, is you're going to start to see me encouraging the texture of the hair, okay? Because I want the hair to have a bit of a texture to it. So I'm going to start to style it slightly while I'm working, so it basically dries into the shape that I want. Okay. Again, coming through the top, pushing it up and connecting it through. Good. Now, I know around me you can see all these things on the mirror. So Harry, if you don't mind zooming out slightly and just checking out what's on the mirror. On the mirrors, guys, we've got basically a whole selection of things describing all the different courses that we do. We've got a whole new curriculum this year as Salon as a company. We've completely changed a lot of things about the company, one of them being the branding, and the other one being the language that we're using when we're teaching, the curriculum. Our curriculum is completely changed. And I'll explain to you why. Harry, what if you just zoom onto me for 1 sec. Through the top, guys, I'm just going to go now, and I'm going to come across and I'm going to check it from left to right to make sure that shape is clean, okay? Now, what Harry was just showing you is our colour courses. So let me tell you what it is we've changed and why it is that we've changed it. So I'm not sure how many of you have ever had Salon education, but I'll be honest with you, we're really, really grateful. For the past 10 years, we've been going for 10 years now, and for the past 10 years, we've had an amazing journey, And me and Pez were talking towards the end of last year about, you know, our brand. What is it we're doing with our brand? What is it that we need to change? What it is that we need to evolve? Because what we don't want to do is be a brand that stands still. So what we've decided to do, talking to all the different educators, working mainly with Jonathan and Kate in regards to the language, working with all the other colour team in regards to all the different colour courses, we've completely revamped every single thing to do with our courses. From the durations, before we only used to do 4-day courses, now we do 4-day courses, 2-day courses, 1-day courses. We used to have it so there was a rule where you had to basically follow a journey, so you wasn't allowed to jump courses. That's no longer the case. Now you are able to choose any course that you want. That way you're able to really decide what's best for you, not necessarily what we think is best for you in regards to your education journey. Whereas before you had to follow our curriculum by doing certain courses in a routine. Now you don't have to do that. Also what we've done is we've taken away some of the exams from some of the courses that we used to do. Just to basically make it a little bit more bite-sized, a little bit more of a kind of, what's the right word? A little bit less intense, I think is the best word. A little more fun, you know. Just to go back to my haircut, I'm going to start through the back now. I'm coming through the centre, okay. I'm going to use this length of the crown, and I'm going to follow the contour of the head, and I'm going to, my cutting line will basically be consistent in length through the top, and then it will get slightly longer. You can see there's a bit of a growth scar there, sorry. So I've got to be careful how short I take it. The good thing is a lot of this hair is going to be left quite long. I'm going to start from the outline. So I'm going to start from the length that sits on the outside of the shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to put, head down for me, darling. I'm going to use that as my guide. So my external length will basically dictate the finishing point of my cutting line. So I don't want to lose too much of that length. And I'm basically going to cut all the hair down to get rid of some of the density in the back. Now the danger here is I don't know what this length is, so what I want to try to do is just take an element of that so I know what I'm aiming for. So what I can do is go from the top down, and then from the bottom to the top. That way I'm meeting in the middle. Okay, so now I connect these two areas here together.
So I just have a question for you. That's why you work in this area, Johnny. Marina's asking, do you always stand on the side of the hair you're about to cut?
That's a really good question, Marina. At the moment, basically, I'm in a situation where this isn't necessarily about me and my comfort. It's about you guys being able to see what I'm doing. So in this scenario, my sections are going to move across this way. So ideally, I'd want to be standing, I'd still actually be standing here, to be fair, but I need to make sure that you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm most of the time not in the most comfortable position to make sure that you can see what I'm doing. My advice in regards to where you should stand really is quite simple. If you feel uncomfortable, you're standing in the wrong place. So stop, think about it, adjust yourself, move the head, because that plays a huge part, and that will make it a bit easier for you. Going back to what we were saying before in regards to the courses, so we've changed the duration, we've changed the exams, we've changed the fact that you don't have to follow a specific journey. We've introduced loads of new colour courses, and also what we're doing is the durations of the courses are very different. So we have, like I said, 1 day, 2 day and 4 days. Now on the 2 day and the 4 days, something which is quite unique and quite special, which we're really proud of, is we've introduced curly hair, cutting curly hair into all of our curriculum. So if we're talking about the cutting courses, Graham, would you mind showing the guys, there's a really cool haircut that Graham cut before, just to show you. Graham, do you want to just take them over?
Yeah, of course, come on guys. So as Johnny's been talking about, with the actual new courses that we're doing with Technique, Salon, on the 4-day hands-on, we're actually introducing curly mannequins into our repertoire, because obviously nowadays curly hair is a really big thing within our industry. So these will be our actual curly mannequins. I cut this today, and what I actually did was I worked with consistent lengths, vertically and horizontally. And a big part of our courses as well when we're doing them is understanding and being able to draw head sheets as well. So this is my method of working when I actually did a haircut today.
You're showing the drawing?
Yeah, I'm just showing the drawing. Had a question from Ellie. What is the benefit of cutting the internal length before the external at the back?
It's a really good question. So if you rewind a little bit in your mind, if you've been watching anymore, the length in the top is really important, and the length at the nape is really important. So my first section, I actually started cutting it at the nape area, and I worked up halfway, and then I used this top area, cut down, so I only had a little bit in the middle, which I basically then connected through. So now what I'm doing is I'm working on the base all the way around, okay, and I'm basically making sure I maintain as much length as I can in the back, but I'm making sure it's connecting into the length in the top. And by doing this, I'm going to create a nice bit of length in the back to play with a bit of texture. Now this type of shape, you probably end up doing a shape like this either in one of the collection courses or in potentially the disconnect course. So if we go over the different courses that we're doing, so we're starting off with our technique course. So we're talking about the cutting courses now. The technique course is basically probably the hardest cutting course that you will do. Be very mindful that this course is about precision cutting beyond belief. It's about the detail and what you should be looking for. So for example, with me now, I'm not just focused on what I'm cutting, I'm really focused on how the roots are moving, whether they're moving left or right from the base or up and down from the base, okay? And what we're going to be showing you in the technique course is the reason why things are happening. So it's not necessarily, you might do the whole course and only do from start to finish maybe 2 haircuts. The chances with that particular course is you're going to be doing learning lots and lots of different things to do with how to create shape, how to create and make the right decisions. So Harry, do me a favour. The guys know what I'm going to be doing with the hair. So if you just zoom in on the courses very quickly, just so you can see the cutting courses. So we've got the technique course. Then we've got the salon course, which is really, really unique and really exciting for us. Gee, do me a favour, just tell the guys about what the salon course will entail.
Yeah, so with the Salon course, so the actual course that we have here, this is actually based on people that are maybe new to the salon floor, salon owners, and what we're actually doing is, obviously with Alilon, as Johnny's been saying, we've had it for 10 years, but also we have Enna, which is our salon, so it's for our consumer. And the whole idea behind the salon course is understanding how we take Alilon education and implement it into a day-to-day salon scenario. So this is how we train our assistants, this is how we train our stylists. So the actual haircuts that we're going to be doing are going to be very salon-friendly haircuts. We're going to be showing you ways that you can actually do haircuts in a quicker speed, working to set time limits. We're going to be working on curly and straight hair. We're going to be actually finishing the hair not completely straight, still using different tools, so using either a tong or a wand, putting bend into the hair, actually putting volume into the hair. So it's actually techniques and ways that you can actually take back to the salon and use on a day-to-day basis.
I think it's quite an interesting thing.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, it's a really interesting...
You had a really clever idea, which we're going to be playing with, haven't we, on that particular course, in regards to photography, photos.
Yeah.
Want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the ideas we had as a group was to actually, because we know that as hairdressers, people are coming into the actual salon and clients tend to bring in, I mean, when I was training, it used to be magazines, but nowadays it's people's phones, It's Instagram images, it's lots of images on the phone. So the idea is to actually take images of people in the public eye, be it celebrities, sportsmen, whoever, and then actually taking the image and having almost like a collage of different images, similar lengths, maybe different textures, and getting the students to actually understand if that person came in with that image, how would you approach that haircut? So as a group, we sit down, we discuss, okay, would we start with an external length? Does it have an internal length in? Where would our starting position be? Would it be at the front? Would it be at the back? Would it be on top? So, and then how would we actually style the hair? Looking at products. So it's actually a very salon scenario that we're trying to create within an actual course. And actually, one of the questions that came through, Romulo, how are you? I can never say your name right, I know. But he came on a course with me last year. I won't say what he says in the message. But you're asking that you did the primary mechanics course last year. The course I would recommend for you to be coming back to actually do, I would either do the Salon course. I think that would be really good for you because I know you're doing training over there in Toronto, and also perhaps the hands-on course as well for you.
That'd be really cool. So guys, what I'm doing now, I don't know if you can see, but even though I'm working clean, I'm trying to encourage the curl. So the hair that I've previously cut, as I'm cutting it, I'm encouraging the texture to come out. I'm not combing it and leaving it straight. And the reason for that is because I want the hair to basically have this kind of raw texture in the back. So every time I'm cutting the hair, I'm releasing it and I'm allowing it to basically do what it is that I want it to do, which is become a little bit more scruffy, a little bit rawer, okay? A little bit less neat. So we've got the technique course, the Salon course, the connect course, and the disconnect course, as well as the collection course. So those are the cutting courses, but we also have some amazing new colour courses. Let's start with the very first colour course, which is basically all you need to know, all I need to know. And it's basically based on everything you could possibly need to know as a colourist. So it's a lot of theory, there is some exams, it's very much about the fundamentals of colouring hair. So anybody who's just kind of qualified and really wants to hone in on the precision and their understanding of colour, that's an amazing course to do. Then we've got a course, something like the Confident Correction, which is basically about fixing and solving problems. That's a fantastic course to be doing when it comes to colour. Then we have the Foil course, which basically does what it says on the tin. Basically, it's to do with foil work, anything to do with working with foils. Then we have the Bleach and Creative Toning. So anything to do with basically, it's slightly more of a funky type course. You tend to use different type of toning techniques, bleaching techniques.
Well, we have two mannequins here actually that were done by Maddie and Annie, and this is actually from our bleaching and creative toning course. And that actual course is a one-day course, and you can actually see with the mannequins, these two over here. If you look at the dark-haired curly one, these two straight ones are exactly the same depth. So if we start with the one over here, you can see that actually on the course they do a virgin bleach application. So they actually lift this, I'm trying to get it a little bit more of a light, so you can see how much they actually lift it. And then later on what they actually do is put a panel within it as well. So it's a really fun course for colourists out there to really start to understand how to get such a beautiful tone with the bleach from the root right down to the end. And the starting depth is the same as depth as this. And also with here, exactly the same. So they're bleaching it and they're using a colour melt to actually get these colours on there. But again, starting with the depth, the same depth as the curly mannequin over here. So the bleach and creative toning is a one-day course. The foils is a one-day course. And then the final course they've got, Johnny, is the balayage course, which is 2 days.
Right. Harry, come over here and we'll bring it back to the hair that I'm working on. So I've basically worked, so let me just go back to what I've been doing. I basically cut the top by taking a section from left to right, cut a length that basically was roughly about this kind of length, consistent from left to right. Then I took sections from front to back, lift the hair up, used that as a guide, and then connected into the previous lengths that I had. Once I cut the top, so my lengths are consistent from left to right, from back to front, and then I came through the back with a vertical section. Now please note, the reason this looks messy is because I'm trying to leave the texture. I'm trying not to let it dry too straight while I'm working it. I'm only trying to work cleaner where I'm working, okay? So I worked vertical sections through the back, okay? Working again on the base. I started my length from the outside of my shape, okay? Pulling the hair straight out from the base. So my number system again is 1 and 2 meet in the middle, 2 and 3 meet in the middle, and so forth. And I've basically used the outline length as a guide, as well as the length that I previously cut through the top. So that's the area that I'm connecting into, okay? Because I want it to be long, but I don't want it to feel like it's not connected. Now, the area behind the ear, this is a bit that you missed when I did that side. The last 2 or 3 sections, I directed them slightly backwards, so my number system changed, and the reason for that was to keep a bit more length through the side, okay? So now, I'm using this section here, and I'm pulling everything to that point, okay? So, I comb the hair this way first, just to get it clean, okay? Then I put my finger there, and I'm aiming for my finger to be starting on the head and coming out from that point. So now these roots, you can see, are being directed backwards. And what that's going to do, it's going to maintain a bit more length through the side.
Johnny, just while you're cutting the back, Carlos is asking, is the back considered to be a concave shape?
That's a good question from Carlos, did you say?
Carlos, yes.
Excellent. So Carlos, the idea behind the back is that I want to basically make sure that my lengths have enough length to basically bend and move. Now, I know that I need to decide a few different things. I want to decide, okay, what length do I want this outline to be? What length do I need the crown to be? What length do I need to be on the top in order for me to create the texture in the top? Once I understand my lengths, then I simply just connect them through. So if you think about it, my lengths have been consistent to a certain point, and then they've increased based on the fact that the hair has had to travel above its base, underneath the occipital bone. Now, as you can see now, the hair is starting to move, and I'm allowing it to be quite textured and quite loose. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry the hair, but I'm going to dry it very loosely, and I'm going to use the tips of my fingers, and I'm going to do it quite slowly, but I'm going to put a little bit, just a little bit of oil milk and oil. So this is oil milk by Davinas, okay? Fantastic leave-in conditioner spray. I'll put that in, and also I'll put in a little bit of oil, and I'll work that in. And I'm not trying to make it too neat, I'm just trying to make sure the hair is conditioned properly. And then I'm going to let the hair do what it wants to do, and then work the outlines once it's dry. Now, some areas of the hair are slightly straighter than other areas, so what you can do is just slowly like crush them with your hand, a bit like this. So all that does, head down Bubba, is it just allows the texture to take control. So I've been trying to work as precise as I can. I've worked a bit looser through the back simply because I didn't want to keep grooming the hair to the point where I've lost the texture. Look in the mirror, you can start to see what the shape's looking like without me even drying it. So this is what the overall shape of the haircut is feeling like. Okay, now all I'm going to do is I'm going to dry it, and then I'm going to use a little bit of freehand and a bit of extra product just to show the shape off. So it's a bit kind of like a funky mullet meets a kind of cool crop. That's the kind of feeling of what I'm doing. I hope you guys are liking it. It's something I'm enjoying. So all I'm doing now is I'm going to allow, I'm not using a diffuser, I'm not going to try and kind of overstyle the hair, I'm just going to keep encouraging the bend, and I'm also going to encourage root lift by lifting the hair from the underneath, and I'm going to let the hair cut and the natural texture do all of the work for me, okay? So by doing it like this way, I'm basically stopping myself from being too involved in the process. In fact, I know what I'll do. Do you have any primer? Can I get the blow dry primer? For those of you who maybe have never used Davinas before, this is a fantastic, this product is genius, It's from your hair assistant. When Ange was part of the Davines family, he worked very, very closely with Davines to create a range of products. And this particular product is really good for getting a little bit of extra root lift in the hair. So all I'm doing is basically putting that through the hair. So as I'm drying it, it will hold it a little bit more. So get the hair at the root. I'm not trying to pull it straight. But by putting the primer in, it makes the hair a little bit grittier and it will help me control a bit more volume in the hair. Now, the only problem is, look, this is a good little tip. You can see where I've been working really cleanly. The zone has dried, the roots have dried this way and that way, they've separated. So before I carry on, I need to basically wet that root, otherwise that will always keep separating for me. And I don't want that, okay? Do that, and then just comb it and mix it up so the hair's all kind of mixed together. And then again, I'm going to try and do this quite rapidly, so I don't spend ages drying the hair. Again guys, try not to kind of get involved too much. Let the texture of the hair do the work for you. I want the front to be quite loose, I want the back to be really raw. And I'm going to just encourage the texture a little bit by just scrunching the hair and creasing the hair with my fingers.
I think maybe while you're drying that, Johnny, we should just have a look at the dates for the courses and also the colours from that.
Yeah, very good, please. Yeah. Just for you guys to have a little look at this amazing colour, Graham and Harry will show you the formulas over there.
So for actual Emma's colours, so the model that Johnny's doing today, Maddie's very kindly written down the formula for you there. So she's pre-lighten using Progress and 20 volume, and that was on for 40 minutes. And then the toner she's used is from Pure Colour, ammonia free, and she's used a 50 gram cream base, plus 30 grams of orange, plus 15 grams of violet, plus 100 grams of 5 volume, and that was on for 35 minutes on dry hair. Okay, so what we'd like to share with you is our course dates for the London Academy. Harry very kindly separated it into colour and cutting. So we have lots of courses coming up. As you can see, as Johnny was talking about, we have different durations of the actual courses. So coming up in March, we have the Confident Corrections, which is 3 days. And our balayage, which is also 2 days. In June we have our foils, which is 1 day, and our bleach and creative toning, which is also 1 day. And then in July we have a 4-day All I Need to Know. And then in September we have a 3-day Confident Corrections. And then in November we have a 2-day balayage. With the cutting, we've got a really exciting, we've got our first Salon course coming up in April, which is 4 days. Also in April we have a 1-day Connect and a 1-day Disconnect. And then in May we have a 2-day hands-on. And in June we have a 4-day hands-on. And then in August we have our Technique course, which is 4 days. And then in September we have our hands-on, which is 2 days. And finally for the year we have our Salon course again for 4 days in November as well. So I think Johnny's just going to be now free-handing. Anything, if you're interested in any of the courses, please contact us at info@aliloneducation.com. You can also book the courses through aliloneducation.com, and then also keep up to date with our Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel as well if you like to keep up with any of the videos that we've done, such as the lives that we've done over the past few years, also our raw, and we also have our quick cuts on there as well. So anything that we put onto Instagram on our Instagram TV is all found on our YouTube channel as well. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through my shape, and I'm really going to loosen this shape up, and I'm going to use lots and lots of different freehand techniques and personalizing techniques to basically remold the hair. Excuse me. Now, even though I've dried it very, very loosely, I'll style it in a minute with some product, but what I need to do, or what I want to do, is I want to basically make sure that the haircut, excuse me, it's fluid. I'm going to keep looking in the mirror, looking at the texture of the hair. Excuse me. And again, you've got to remember that obviously I directed the hair back slightly more on this side to maintain the extra length. So I'm just basically dusting off anything I'm not happy with. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to start to break into all the hair. So I'm going to comb the hair out. I'm going to use the scissors and I'm going to just basically chip away some of the lengths so that it becomes a little bit more airy. Excuse me. All of a sudden I've got dry throat.
Some water,
it's all good. Now as I'm working on the inside of the shape, I'm going to start to use with some quite deep pointing, and then what that's going to do is going to create a bit more looseness in the shape. Now this is the time now where you start to really personalize the haircut and make it a bit looser. And even though obviously I've dried it very loosely, I've still dried it in a way where I can actually pick it up and have some fun with it. And all this is doing now is it's allowing me to thin the hair out. So if you zoom out a little bit, Harry, come where I am, you can see that I'm making it a little bit more airy and a little bit looser. So there's really short areas and really long areas. So the whole thing, when I put product in it, will kind of come alive. I've cut it very mechanically and very technically. So you've got this solid shape, but when you dry it, you don't get this kind of raw effect. So in order for me to change the texture of it, that's when I have to start using either freehand techniques, or in this scenario, personalizing techniques with quite deep pointing. Has anyone got any questions, Jim?
No, John's saying it's a simply stunning. You've definitely done that colour justice, Johnny. Loves the hair.
Thanks, mate. Thank you. So the colour's incredible. I think what's really nice is that Maddie and our model had a really good discussion beforehand. I mean, that looks so much cooler now because if you come around here, Emma, you can see that it's flattened the shape out, and it's allowed me all this texture now to basically move, because the shorter hair basically allows the shape to soften. When the shape is compact and only club cut, the shape tends to be very heavy. So look at this side and then look at this side. Very different feeling. This feels much more solid and compact, whereas this side is where I'm aiming for the hair to be. A little bit more airy, a little bit softer, a little bit more tendrily. So that's my goal. Okay, that's where I'm aiming. So I'm going to come through the center now and do exactly the same thing. So around the hairlines, I'm going to work more to do with slicing. So what I'm doing is I'm using the tips of the scissors, and you can see I'm cutting little areas inside, but I'm making sure I'm keeping this long. And then as I work inside now, I'm going to start to work a bit more technically, but I'm going to use pointing to really thin that hair out, and I'm going to go quite deep. Now basically it's really awkward for me to lift the hair like this, so I'm going to work on top from above, okay? Work from above. Head down for me. Perfect. Come across, lift the hair up, comb the hair out, and I can see obviously my mechanics, and then all I do is just go really deep. The deeper I go, the looser the shape's going to become, because I don't want it to feel like I want it to feel like a mullet, but I don't want it to feel like a heavy mullet. And again, so I'm still working in sections. I'm combing the hair up, combing the hair that I've already cut out the way, and then I'm going practically the whole blade inside.
I have a question for you, Johnny. So Tony, hi Tony.
Hi Tony.
Any tips on how to understand placements of zones when working disconnection, size of the zone, of zones, number system in those zones?
Really good question. So Tony, what you have to understand is, well, actually it depends. Some people tend to just start and kind of cut as they go and make the hair cut up as they go. That's usually, if I'm really honest, what I do. But in this scenario, we had a very definite idea, simply because I know my young lady, she wanted to keep a lot of the length in the back. She wanted that length around the nape. So by, that was almost like not a restriction, it was actually a guide. So I knew I needed to keep the length at the nape in the back. That automatically gave me the answer to your question, which is, okay, right, I know I need to maintain my length in the back. I have freedom through the top and through the front, so I can separate the zones. So I'm going to need 3 zones, one either side and one at the back. So it enabled me to really plan my how many zones I wanted, and then it also enabled me to understand what kind of lengths I wanted in each zone, because the lengths that you're choosing for each zone is just as important as the number system, just as important as the size of the zone, just as important as the choice of length in regards to where I want the texture to sit. Now look how much area that's looking. That's looking much more looser. And then after, when I put a bit of product in that, I can basically manipulate the hair to come alive how I want it.
We have a question about tools, Johnny. So Mark is asking, could you use a razor to get the same result?
The answer to Mark's question is yeah, you could. You probably could, yeah. You could use a razor. You could probably use a thinning scissors as well. That would give you a similar result. The techniques that I'm using now, they're all different. Basically, the idea is that to create this look with one pair of scissors and one comb. But ideally, you could use different tools, i.e. like razors or thinning scissors, to actually achieve elements of this kind of texture in the hair. The only thing I find when it comes to using a razor, I find it a little bit aggressive in regards to the texture, but it's a fantastic tool to create texture. So if you can, who asked that question? Sorry, Tony, did you say?
Tony, yeah.
So Tony, if you...
Sorry, not Tony, Mark.
Mark.
Sorry,
okay, good question, Mark. So if you feel like a razor is the right job to use for this particular job, then mate, you should use it. You should definitely use it. Don't ever think that, try not to think too limited. Try not to think that if someone says to you, for example, that a razor is a bad tool, that is the case, because it's not. It's not the tool that's the problem, it's the person using the tool that's the problem. If the person doesn't know how to use a pair of scissors, this can be just as deadly as a razor or a thinning scissor. It's all about knowledge, and as long as you understand what you're doing, you can use any tool you want. Again, bevel the hair, and I'm going really deep. And every time I'm moving the hair around to understand what is going on with my texture. And I keep looking in the mirror, because the mirror tells me a lot of stories. It communicates to me what's going on and what I'm not seeing. Now the beauty of this kind of shape is that half of it is really, really mechanical, and then half of it is completely not mechanical. And that's the goal here. The goal here is for me to basically create lots and lots of rough, kind of scruffy textures next to this really, really mechanical, clean front shape. So I'll tilt the head down, look at that texture, and really encourage that texture. Like move it with your fingers and see how the hair moves. Yeah? Head up again. Head up again. Good. Okay.
Just quickly, Johnny, sorry. Alex is asking, are those our own clips that you're using, the black ones?
Yeah, so at the moment what we're doing is these particular clips, we basically sell them downstairs. If you want to go on to www.aloneducation.com, you can see all of our tools that we basically retail. We sell them online, so we can actually sell them and send them to you. Again, I'm going through the top, guys, and I'm really going quite deep, okay? Really deep, because I don't want there to be any structure. You see? I'm basically cutting channels running through it. And then later on, when it comes to me styling the hair, the hair will be quite a lot more airy, a lot less compact. So I know the overall lengths are balanced. Now what I'm doing is I'm starting to make sure that the texture inside becomes a little bit looser. And then I'm going to use loads of freehand techniques, again to encourage texture. So I'm going through the top, mainly through the middle.
I just had a question about, you were just talking about the clips, but now we just had a question about the scissors you're using again, Johnny.
Okay.
I'm just asking what shears you're using and can we buy them?
Yeah, so I'm using the Salon shear, and the idea behind it is that this is the gunmetal grey one. You can buy all of our tools, all of our combs, all of our teaching accessories, all of our water sprays, everything you want you can purchase on our website, which is, if you could write down the website in the comment sections, that'd be really good, yeah? And you can purchase them all there and see which ones you like. Personally, out of our scissors, I love the gunmetal grey ones myself, but I know, for example, Ped really loves the 5.25, which is the black pair. I think, again, it's all preference, isn't it? You see what I'm doing now, guys? I'm really loosening the hair up, and by moving the hair around, I'm able to see what's happening with my shape. Now I'm going to start to use lots of freehand, okay? So freehand is slightly different to personalizing, because personalizing is more to do with actually holding the hair, positioning the hair into place, whereas freehand basically is where you don't necessarily hold the hair with your fingers, and you just basically take away the lengths that you don't want. So all I'm doing now is I'm cutting loads of short areas inside the shape. So using the tips of my scissors, I'm going in quite deep, can you see? And what that's doing is it's creating shorter areas, but the longer areas I can still pull out if I want to. Now by cutting my initial shape, I still keep the overall shape that I want, because I didn't want it to be too flat around the top. But then by using these different techniques, I'm able to basically loosen the shape and just cut random short areas where I want them to be. Okay, come on the other side and do exactly the same. So comb the hair down to start with, just to get rid of all those hairs so you know what's off, and then just come in and just cut little cropped areas inside. Now I'm doing that mainly on the roundness of the head. If you notice, I'm doing it a lot, or mainly around this area here. Okay? Now can you see the hair is smoother, but it's not straight. And the reason for that is because when I put some product in this haircut, all of a sudden it's going to come alive. Again, I'm just going to work a little bit looser on the outlines with some slicing techniques, just to diffuse the lengths. Now, for those of you watching who maybe have seen me work before, you know that a lot of the time when I work, I tend to work very mechanical. But what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to almost break that mold and work a little bit looser with my approach, so that I've got my technical approach already in, but now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create more of a raw feeling to the shape, especially in my lengths. And hopefully when I put some product in this, all the lengths will come alive. So comb the hair down, get behind me, Harry, and then just basically point right into the roots. That way I keep lengths, but I collapse a lot of the excess length and weight out of it. So if she wants to wear it flat, she can. Can you see? If we want to, we can just blow dry this smooth and wear it smooth. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to have it so you've got long bits, short bits, all kind of sitting next to each other. I'm almost there. I'm almost at the end of my shape. So if you want to, I'm going to have a quick recap at the end. So when I'm doing this, I'm making sure that I basically touch the scalp, and I'm making sure all these little short hairs become then spiky and textured. So as I move the hair after, the hair then is able to come alive in that area. Cool. Cool. I like that. Look up. Cool. Look at the mirror, Harry. You can start to see my shape evolving, guys. And now, as you start to play with your hands like this and start to move the hair around, it starts to become more tendrily. So what you do now is you look at what you don't like and what you do like. So for me, I need to lose a little bit of this weight through the back of the ear. I still want to keep the lengths in it, but I want it to be a little bit less heavy. So I pick up random bits and I loosen them up. The little bit behind the ear there, a little bit over the ear. Take that weight away. And then what you're going to start to do now is the oil from your hands will start to mould the hair. And if I want, I can wear it so it's a lot more wilder. Or if I want, I can wear it a little more flatter and just pull out random bits where I want to pull them out, which I think is quite cool. I mean, she's got an incredible look about her head up from Bubba. I like the idea of the hair being smooth and silky in certain areas, and then quite crazy and bonkers in other areas. Okay, I'm coming towards the end of my shape now. Now some of you are going to look at this shape and absolutely love it. Some of you are going to look at this shape and think, whoa, that's quite intense. That's a good thing, because I want people to be sometimes challenged visually, but also this is a shape that if you wanted to, you could just draw it straight and smooth and it would look like a classic mullet. Or you can do what I've done, which is basically try and encourage the bend in the hair and then let it become a bit more visual. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get rid of all the little hairs that I've cut, and I'm going to style it. I'm going to style it in different ways. I'm going to style the short hair first, and then I'm going to style the long hair after. And every time I move the hair, it will feel and look a little bit different every time. So, let me show you what I'm going to do now. This is going to be the fun bit. Right. Very quickly, I'm going to just go over the outlines to make the outline super graphic. Not too much in the areas that I didn't want to use the clipper on. So just in the areas where I wanted to use the clipper, I'm going to use them. Make them nice and sharp. Again, make sure it's nice and clean around the ear. Keep that length on the sideburn. On this side, Harry, come on this side, mate. Things in the way. Now you know I haven't blow dried this short hair. I don't want to use the clipper too much on the fringe because I don't want it to be too sharp. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of oil. Rub it into my hands and then really work it into the hair. And what this is going to do, it's going to make it a little bit more matte feeling. Matted. Still a bit more softer and a little bit less dry looking, but it's going to make the whole hair become a bit more matted because I'm basically the way I'm rubbing the hair, and I want this to feel really raw. I want this to feel really raw. And then the shorter hair, I'm going to push it down so that way it smooths it all out. Now I'm not focused on the length at the moment. I'm not worried about all that. I'm focused on all the detail work here. So I'm going to comb all that into place. Flip the fringe, let the fringe do its thing. Make it arc. And dress that little, so it becomes a beautiful little scale there. And then here, I'm going to flatten it out in areas that I don't want and style it up where I do want. So now's the time where I start to use my mirror. I look at this silhouette and I plan what I need. And I start to dress the hair a bit more. Get a bit more bend in it so the hair moves. And then look what I'm doing with my hand. Can you see here? Look in go in front, sorry. You get your fingers like this and you just basically do that. And you pull areas out of the shape that you want. Yeah, head up for me. There you go. And I think that looks quite cool from the front. I think it looks amazing. If you zoom out, Harry. Go there for me. You can see what the shape looks like. And then, just in the back, I want the crown to be quite high, but I want the occipital bone to be quite flat. So I just push it down, and I get a tiny bit of hairspray. I don't need a lot. I don't need a lot at all. So this is the extra strong hairspray. Now I just bend the ends of the hair. And by doing that, I crease the hair. You guys have liked watching me cut this haircut. I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed cutting it. So it's kind of like a fitted crop with quite a raw mullety type haircut. Loads of texture in the back, loads and loads of precision cutting in the front, trying to really get that dynamic shape through the sides, and a really graphic line through the top here around the ear. So if I take this away, if you stand up for me, excellent, perfect, excellent. So you can see, thanks G, I've managed to go for something quite graphic. If you guys have got any last minute questions, feel free to tune in and ask me. Again, just bend the hair with your fingers so you get that texture in there. You want that width and you want that height around the top. If I quickly go over my shape and how I cut it, the idea is that I have this kind of punk, mullet, crop type shape. I've basically cut all the front zone by working on the base, moving all the way round to the back of the ear, then carving beautiful outlines in, but keeping this soft little kind of texture through the side. Then on this side, I've gone for something a bit more graphic and sharper towards the cheekbone. And then through the back, I've used basically vertical sections with cutting lines that were consistent in length but increasing to the middle. And I can basically style it however I want, because I've cut loads of short bits and soft and longer bits, leaving all of the outline, so my length was longer on the outside and then gradually got shorter towards the top. And you can style it however you want. I can make it completely wild and mad and crazy, which I quite like if I'm honest, which I'm into at the moment. Or you can wear it quite flat and smooth and you can iron it out and make it really neat. It's up to you. But I hope you like my shape. This is my shape with an amazing colour by Madeline. What I'd like to say, Jude, let me know if anyone's got any last minute questions. I'd like to say thank you to all the guys at Hairbrained for allowing us to have a Hairbrained takeover. I hope you've enjoyed this haircut. I've enjoyed cutting it. Thank you to my beautiful model for doing a great job. And thank you to Graham and Harry for basically filming and asking any questions. Have a lovely day, and hopefully we'll see you soon in London or over in the States or wherever you guys are. Thank you, and thank you Hairbrained. Have a lovely day.